Sadly, though, and I don't want to paint a too rosy image, we're not done. We're not done. The COVID battle is still ongoing. And very unfortunately, if I look at Brazil, this purple curve is not heading in the right direction. I'm very optimistic that we'll turn the curve, but for the moment, we're not going in the right direction at all. If I look at the UK, even at the US, you think that US is doing fabulously well. Well, we're not, because I don't like this plateau that we have seen now for about 4 to 6 weeks, because plateaus are not good, because the plateau is still there while we're vaccinating a lot of people in the US, as you will see in a minute. Now, Israel did a fantastic job, and frankly, that's a lesson learned for everyone else. But on the flip side, we can discuss how they did it and how they're doing it. But it's a small country, and it's much more manageable than large geographies like Brazil, like the US, and other large countries. And what's complicating the COVID story are the variants. Some of them are covered very, very well by the current vaccines, like the UK strain. Some are less covered, like the Brazil one, where frankly, we're doing some additional work at Moderna and in other companies to make sure that we can cover it. So we, as of last week, launched a study with a new vaccine that is focused on the South Africa strain. So for the Moderna vaccine, Brazil is covered, UK is covered, South Africa is not covered. So we're starting this, what we call the booster dose. And we're here again, we're not taking any risks. So we're 3 shots on goal. We're starting a booster with the South Africa variant. We're starting a booster study with a combination of the South African variant and the usual, the primary COVID vaccine. And we're starting a 3rd booster with the regular COVID vaccines. And we'll see which one will work best. But it is clear that eventually we'll need a booster. We don't know how often that we will need it. Might be every year, every 2 years. Studies will show. Meanwhile, the good news in all this is we are, as humanity, making progress. And I was really happy to see that despite some of the curves going in the wrong direction, the United States and Brazil are next to each other, more or less, in terms of number of doses administered per 100 people. Is it optimal? Absolutely not. But we are, for both countries, much, much, much better than the word that you see at the bottom of the page or many other countries out there. Is it enough? No, it's not enough. Can we do better? Absolutely, we can do better. And with that, I'd like to introduce you to my fellow Lebanese at Moderna. We call it the Gang of 8. I introduced Nubar. I'd like to introduce Marcello Damiani. Marcello is the Chief Digital and Operational Excellence Officer. He's from Tripoli, from MENA, up there. And he has been with the company from literally its inception. And Moderna, with all its technology, relies a lot on machine learning and artificial intelligence. That is what enabled us to do what we need to do. And Marcello, his mom is Italian, that's why his name is Marcello. But nevertheless, he speaks Arabic better than anyone, and his heart is in Trablus, MENA, and still there. His contribution has been terrific. Said Francis, he's our head of business development and corporate strategy. He's the one who drove the strategy of Moderna during the COVID, during the last year, actually, and did a fantastic job. Sharbel Haber is a colleague from Serene, Bilmatan. And Sharbel is he's the guy who's driving our regulatory affairs. He is the one who is interacting with all the regulatory agencies throughout the world, actually. to help us have the product approved. Monique Joachim Turk is from Beirut, and she's our Director of Program and Alliance Management. Joe Sarkis, his parents are Lebanese. He was born in the US, and he's an Associate Director with us. And Joyce Kfouri Sousa, also Lebanese. Her parents are Lebanese. She was born in the US, and she's a Quality Control Manager. So I cannot be more proud, honestly, to have 7 other colleagues that work all together in advancing the COVID vaccine for Moderna, frankly, and making Lebanon proud. We need every piece of good news given what's going on in our country. And with that, I'd like to leave you with a thought, going back to where I started. I talked about the importance of those helpers that we find along the way that really helped us, one person at a time, to get where we are. And we should continue to be always grateful. I also spoke about the need at all levels to keep and maintain the nurturing of our immigration mindset. This is something that is in our DNA as Lebanese, that makes us unique. And at the same time, these opportunities that we face in our life are never easy or obvious, but I know that every one of you got to where you are because of your courage, because of your resilience, and because of the faith you have in oneself. Now, I'd like to leave you with a request, and my request is, given where Lebanon is today, given even where Brazil is today, given where our Lebanese friends, family, brothers, sisters are today, my request to you individually is please give back. Each one of you can be the helper for those people who are not as fortunate as we are, and for those whose journey to success, journey to freedom, journey to fulfillment will cross yours. And I truly believe that giving back is key, absolutely key, to have this virtual circle of Lebanese throughout the world, and the success we have continue forever and ever. And I have a profound belief, this is my belief, the belief of my family, is you give one, the universe will give you 100. But now more than ever, please be the helper for someone or someone's, 1 at a time, 10 at a time, 100 at a time. And whatever you do, whatever we do, don't consider that it's not much, because the little thing that we can do as Lebanese to our Lebanese fellows could transform lives, literally transform lives. And this is, frankly, the message I'd like to leave you with. So thank you so very much.
I'd like to ask you two questions. One is related to this Brazilian P1 that we are really worried about. And you have said that the Moderna vaccine does work with P1. Do you have any data on the efficacy of the vaccine itself, or is this related to neutralizing antibodies? Because we have seen in some of the papers that the titer of the antibodies fall down for 2 or 3 times. And I wonder if we will have enough antibodies to fight disease. And the second question is, I know that Brazil took a long time in order to communicate with Moderna to buy vaccines, but we urgently need these vaccines in this country. Do you think you could help us in having vaccines from Moderna in Brazil?
You're absolutely right on the P1. The data we have are neutralizing antibody. There is a very solid correlation, though, between neutralizing antibody and the human, clinical protection. So we're optimistic. However, with Moderna, we're conducting some additional studies to make sure that the coverage is enough. If it is not enough, then as we did with the South African, I'm sure that our team, our scientists, will embark on developing a Brazilian the Brazilian variant, if you will. But for the moment, we are just testing to see if the current vaccine works as we predict based on the neutralizing antibody. The second question is the availability of the vaccine. Moderna took a stand because we're such a small company. We did not have a network of representatives. We did not have representative in Brazil, for example. Actually, we did not have a representative anywhere. We started creating this network literally a few months back. So the way we approach the distribution of the vaccine is through direct communication between governments and Moderna. That's the way it works. So many, if not most of the governments that got in touch with us got their vaccine. I'm not involved in those commercial things directly, obviously, but my recommendation would be if the Brazilian government is interested in getting the Moderna vaccine, they have to pick up the phone, literally pick up the phone and call Moderna. I mean, that's the way that presidents, prime ministers did. And they started calling us very, very early. I mean, we received the first calls literally in March of last year. And they said when the vaccine will be available, and they started reserving quantities. That's the only way, because our production is limited, you know. So most everything we currently have is already being assigned. This being said, we are in the process of setting up shop in Brazil. We are interviewing, we just hired a head of commercial. I spoke with her a couple of days ago about Brazil, and she confirmed that we are in the process of establishing a presence there. So here again, on the presence, stay tuned as well.
In regard to the 63 days between the concept of the vaccine and the first injection in humans, this is a staggering and fantastic timeline. So is this the new normal? I mean, are we going to this new realm when we're going to give a vaccine from scratch in 2 months to people? And if you have any advice how we can go that path in the future?
Moderna was founded 10 years ago. So the mRNA technology has been developed and improved over the years for the last 10 years. The COVID vaccine is vaccine number 7 that we developed. Probably the nuance there is no one vaccine reached the commercial stage. We have a bunch of vaccines that are still in phase 1 and phase 2. Okay, so the 68 is a worldwide record, but the 68 is the result of 10 years of hard work by our scientists and our investors who literally invested billions of dollars with a B in developing this technology. So with mRNA, the beauty is once you set it up, it's very easy, quote unquote, easy to work the sequence of the mRNA, you know, because it's like a Lego, you build it. But it has this whole machine behind it. So the reason we will be able to do the 68 days is really leveraging a gigantic effort made by the company in 10 years. To answer your question, is it the new norm? That's a very profound question, because part of the answer is yes, part of the answer is no. If, see, for example, we had the vaccine for the South African, again, in a matter of weeks, it was done. So if we replicate the same technology, we can, yes, have a vaccine very quickly, no question. But yet there are certain diseases, certain viruses that cannot use yet this technology. We have to go back to the more traditional technology that you're very, very familiar with, and this takes more time. So, but the future is here and we can do it. Can we do it every time? Probably not. So for example, our friends at Pfizer, I think it was Pfizer, announced that they're developing a vaccine for gonorrhea following kind of the same principle. So it's starting to emerge. Now, whether it will be successful or not, I don't know. But we're starting to do miracles here, thanks to, frankly, genetics, genomics, artificial intelligence, and putting all this together. So I'm reasonably optimistic. we need also to continue to be mindful of safety. And I know that this was a very major concern that was also fueled by some politicians here in the US, at least, fueled by the anti-vaxxers. Now, thanks God, today we celebrated, you might have seen it on the slide, yesterday we announced that we delivered 100 million doses to the US. We have probably delivered 130, 140 million doses so far. So the exposure is huge. And if there were any short-term, medium-term issues, we would have seen them. But, you know, as a physician, as a scientist, my priority number 1, 2, and 3 is the safety of the people, especially when it comes to vaccines. So this is something that we need to keep in mind. And I would be careful, because the technology appears to be simple, not to have small boutiques showing up left and right and try to replicate what companies like Moderna or Pfizer or J&J or others are doing. That's a concern that we need to be very mindful of.
Are we ready to provide information to the cells to produce other proteins? And that is the beginning of a new era of treatment?
The answer is yes. At Moderna, we have 23 programs ongoing in parallel today, including in cancer. So yes, we are looking at multiple applications beyond the vaccines. Some of them are a little bit more complicated than others. So yeah, I mean, the minute you start knowing and mastering manufacturing proteins, the sky is the limit. And for a company like Moderna, it's not what we can do. It's really zooming in on you know, the priorities, because every day our scientists come up with a new idea. We cannot pursue them all. So it's opening a completely new avenue now in terms of medicine, in terms of prevention through the vaccines, in terms of treatment as well. So yes, the question is absolutely excellent question, and the answer is absolutely yes.
Here in Brazil, we had some political problems with the vaccine. Have you had any political intervenence when producing Moderna vaccine?
Moderna did not have the means to develop the vaccine based on the capital we have. So we leveraged, frankly, what the government had to offer, and the US government, through its different channels, actually offered us quite a bit of help. Case in point, our phase 1 was developed with the National Institute of Health, and you might have heard of Dr. Fauci. He's becoming kind of a worldwide celebrity. Dr. Fauci was our principal investigator. Okay, and the relationship with Dr. Fauci goes back many, many years. So we have worked scientifically quite a bit with NIH. We have worked, frankly, hand in hand also with the regulators, with FDA, because FDA were learning, and we really worked as partners with them quite a bit, because they needed to understand the technology. They needed to understand how we can develop a vaccine in such quick time for a virus that was unknown. But at the same time, we learned from them what are the requirements. So it was a good partnership. Now, you all heard through the media the pressure that our former president has put on everyone, saying we'll have a vaccine tomorrow morning and blah, 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 blah. So this did not help, frankly, because it shed some lack of credibility about the vaccine, and frankly fueled, at least in this country, this movement of anti-vaxxers. I mean, I'm flabbergasted that still 30% of the health professionals are refusing the vaccine, which doesn't make any sense whatsoever, you know. And when you look a little bit deeper in those who accept the vaccine, you see, at least in this country, a significant percentage of Democrats accepting the vaccine, a significant percentage of Republicans not accepting the vaccine, which for me doesn't, again, make any sense, because anything that has to do with politics should not be mixed with public health. I mean, we're killing people. It's not a joke. So that's the unfortunate. Now, everyone was under pressure. Politicians were under pressure, government was under pressure, company was under pressure. And we tried to shield ourselves from the pressure because, as I said it a minute ago, Our priority was to deliver a vaccine in time, but a vaccine that works, but more importantly, a vaccine that is safe. So it was not easy every day. I would not lie to you. Some days were really, really not easy at all. But at the end of the day, frankly, the common sense and science prevailed, and I'm very happy with the outcome.